The Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the NFL's oldest, most prestigious organizations. Even though the New England Patriots recently tied their mark of 6 Super Bowl titles, there's still something special about the Steeler black and gold Heinz Field and the terrible towels. The Pittsburgh Steelers are an organization that has a rich, storied history, no doubt about it. But unlike some of the other traditionally great franchises, like the Dallas Cowboys, who have had trouble meeting the expectations that their diehard fan bases have for them, the Steelers have had a lot of success in the modern era. Since 2002, when the divisions were realigned, the Steelers have snatched up 8 AFC North titles, during a very competitive stretch for the division, not to mention 3 victories in the AFC Championship game and 2 Super Bowl wins. Imagine, Brady and Belichick were standing in their way every year too. Who knows how many titles they could have won if it weren't for the Patriots dynasty? Anyway, it is interesting when you look back at the recent success in Pittsburgh, because they've won games in a variety of ways, all of which vary from the traditional Pittsburgh Steel Curtain mentality that won them their first 4 Super Bowls in the 1970s. For their Super Bowl run in 2005, Big Ben was in just his second season in the NFL. Pittsburgh leaned heavily on the bus, Jerome Bettis, and some crafty coaching to carry their youthful but talented quarterback. The next time around, in 2008, the Steelers had a much more seasoned version of Ben Roethlisberger under center, and while their defense was strong, the offense carried much more weight than any of those 1970 Steelers teams could have imagined. But throughout all of their recent successes, there's been one reoccurring theme that has remained true. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a knack for being able to find elite skill players buried in the late rounds of the draft. Generally speaking, when a team hits on a guy in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round, there's a general consensus that there was some degree of luck that went into their success. And while that is true, it is much harder to argue when you look at the Steelers' insane track record throughout the past 20 years. Of course, the Steelers aren't perfect. There are some misses over the years. DeMarcus Ayers was a prayer or a shot in the dark or whatever you want to call him as a former 7th round draft choice who ultimately didn't pan out. Similarly, Marcus Wheaton never ended up turning into a great player despite showing occasional flashes. In fairness, he was hindered by injuries for most of his career, but even so, he ended up becoming a capable number 3 option for the Steelers, which for their insane standards is somehow a failure. But, I mean, when you have draft picks like Antonio Brown in the 6th round, Emmanuel Sanders in the 3rd round, and Juju Smith-Schuster at the end of the 2nd round, it begins to make sense that the standard is so high in Pittsburgh for their wideouts, no matter where they're selected in the draft. Where it gets really interesting, however, is when you start to look back at the who and what, namely who and what philosophies were responsible for creating such an impressive breeding ground for wide receiver talent. Because while it may come as a surprise to some younger NFL fans, the Steelers' success drafting wide receivers predates the addition of Juju AB and even Emmanuel Sanders. Since their current general manager, Kevin Colbert, joined the organization way back in 2000, the Steelers have drafted 6 1,000-yard receivers. And it seems like every time one of them was due for a payday and went elsewhere, they had no problem going right back to the well to find another diamond in the rough. Of course, the biggest name of the bunch is Antonio Brown, who, for all the chaos he's caused on his way out of Pittsburgh and in the time since, is undeniably one of the single best talents of his generation, regardless of position. A former 6th-round draft pick out of Central Michigan, Brown came into the league as an undersized, primarily special teams player. But under the Steelers' way, he became an absolute beast. During his 9-year run with the Steelers, Brown accumulated over 11,000 yards with 75 touchdowns. He was a 7-time Pro Bowl selection and a 4-time first-team All-Pro. He is arguably the single greatest Steelers wide receiver of all time, and obviously a tremendous draft pick in the 6th round. I know he left Pittsburgh on pretty rocky terms, and he hasn't done much to help his case since, but when you look at what he did on the field in Pittsburgh, it was unparalleled. Similarly, Martavis Bryant, a former 4th-round pick out of Clemson, was a force to be reckoned with for Pittsburgh, until his off-the-field issues got the best of him, prompting a number of suspensions and a subsequent trade to the then Oakland Raiders. Then there's the guys like Mike Wallace, Emmanuel Sanders, and Deontay Johnson. 3 third-round selections in the 2009, 2010, and 2018 NFL drafts respectively that went on to have great NFL careers. Wallace was selected to a Pro Bowl in Pittsburgh and went on to amass 57 receiver touchdowns and over 8,000 yards during his NFL career. Sanders, on the other hand, is actually still playing. through 149 career games, has totaled 8,197 yards and 44 touchdowns, and he's made 2 trips to the Pro Bowl. Sanders is also a Super Bowl winner, and honestly, he would have won 2 if Jimmy G was able to hit him in stride, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, he was and still is a very quality NFL wide receiver. And Johnson, while there's still much to be written in his NFL career, looks to be on the right track. He's had a very solid debut performance for a third-rounder during his rookie season in 2019, totaling 680 yards and 5 touchdowns. Then, of course, there is the aforementioned Juju Smith-Schuster, who, despite being the 5th wide receiver taken in the 2017 NFL Draft, has gone on to have an excellent start to his young NFL career. He struggled a little bit during 2019 with the quarterback carousel that ensued once Big Ben was out for the year, but he had a Pro Bowl season in 2018 when he recorded 1,426 yards and 7 touchdowns, and looked to be the real deal. To have that many guys hit over the past 10 years is pretty damn impressive if you ask me. There were, of course, some pretty tough misses too, like their first-round draft pick in 2000, Colbert's first year. Troy Edwards played just 3 seasons in Pittsburgh, and after a decent rookie campaign, he totaled less than 40 receptions over his final 2 years there. Or guys like Limas Sweed and Sammy Coates, both whom were taken during the Mike Tomlin era. Sweed as a second-rounder in 2008, and Coates as a third-rounder in 2015. Coates only played 2 seasons with the Steelers, totaling over just 500 yards and 2 touchdowns. In fairness to Sammy, he did battle a number of injuries over his short career before being traded to the Cleveland Browns ahead of the 2017 season, which, let's be honest, was a death sentence for his career. Sweed, on the other hand, might have been the single worst pick of the entire Mike Tomlin era. He totaled less than 70 receiving yards during 2 years in the Steel City and never even caught a touchdown pass. Yikes. But considering how much of a crapshoot the NFL draft can be, especially when you're making picks late in the draft, there's no denying the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers are exceptional when it comes to drafting wide receiver talent. In fact, they are so exceptional that if you look closely at what they've done over the years, and some of the trends that started to popularize around the league, you might notice that it looks like a lot of other organizations, the Patriots included, might have tried to imitate the Steelers model. While many NFL teams traditionally look for the biggest, strongest, and fastest when it comes to drafting wide receivers, the Steelers took a unique approach. With the obvious exception of their most recent promising selection at wide receiver, Chase Claypool, the Steelers have seemingly targeted undersized wideouts, many of whom underperformed at the NFL Combine, perhaps believing that they were finding value in the crumbs, as many teams were quick to overlook the short guys without blazing fast 40 times. Martavis Bryant was the last memorable wide receiver that they've taken who was in that 6'4" range. Besides that, everyone else is 6'1" and under. And check out some of these forgettable combine performances. Juju Smith-Schuster ran a 4.54 40-yard dash, decent, but nothing to write home about. And he had just a 33.5-inch vertical jump. James Washington, who, by the way, was under 6 feet tall, also had a 4.54 40, while only slightly besting Juju on the vertical with 34.5 inches. Even Antonio Brown, the guy stood 5'10" and only had a 33.5-inch vertical and ran a 4.57 second 40. But once he got to the league, it seemed like there wasn't a single defensive back that could cover him. Obviously, there will always be a place for speedy, athletic wide receivers in the NFL. That's just a fact. Guys like Tyreek Hill and Henry Ruggs will always have a purpose. The same goes for the physical freaks that can go up and get it like Randy Moss and Calvin Johnson used to before passing the baton along to the likes of DK Metcalf and Mike Evans. But the way that the Steelers have picked wide receivers almost certainly opened up opportunities for the Jarvis Landrys of the world, who, with a 4.77 second 40-yard dash and a 28.5-inch vertical leap at the 2014 NFL Combine, should thank his lucky stars that guys like Antonio Brown paved the way for that archetype of receiver. It is interesting to see that the Steelers have changed their tune slightly, picking Chase Claypool this year. But based off of his early performances, it looks like, even if they change the recipe, the results are gonna be the same. Another year, another solid NFL wide receiver picked up by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wash, rinse, and repeat. But what about you? When it comes to drafting, which team do you think is the best in the NFL? join us in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton, and hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.